which is resilience and scale. And this is going to have to be brief. But we're going to drill down a lot more in this when we talk about security, because we want to make security scalable. So first of all, we have load balancers. We have public load balancers and internal load balancers. And they're pretty obvious that the difference is the internal load balancers have a private IPs. The public load balancer has a public IP that's added into the internet. They have the following components that I want to go through very briefly. Most of them are exactly what you probably think they are. There's first of all the front end. A load balancer can have one or more front end IP configurations. And they are going to be in some sort of a VNet in the case of an internal load balancer. And that would be private IP addresses. You don't have to assign private IP addresses. It would simply, Azure would simply select the lowest one. You can have one or more backend pools. And the backend pools are collections of either virtual machines or what are called VMSS, and the virtual machine scale sets. And you can have multiple pools. Now, maybe you have to set up probes which determine whether or not the VMs are healthy. So here an example of, you can use TCP, HTTP, or HTTPS. And for HTTPS, you actually give it a URL, and it determines if it can reach that URL for HTTP and HTTPS. So this is how you maintain the health, and you'll load balance between the healthy VMs. And the last thing is the rules, which tie the front end to the back end pool. So you can say, I want this IP to go to that pool and this other IP to go to this other pool. And it's going to go to various, you can use the various ports and protocols. But the problem is you can't say for a public load balancer, I want all traffic to go to a load balance. You can do that with an internal load balancer with a feature called HA ports. And that's a limitation that would just say, I don't care about the speed, UDP, what ports, send everything. Load balance all the traffic coming into this load balancer between those VMs. And here are basically some differences between a basic and a standard load balancer. I'll just leave that for your reference. And there's also something called an application gateway. An application gateway has it's just for HTTP. It's really a load balancer. But as you can see here, we would have multiple backend pools, one say for video, one for images, one for everything else. And the application gateway is very easy to set up, and it's an easy way to get a scalable web server design. And the VMSS, and this is actually a good place to finish today, because this is sort of where we're going to start on the next lecture. They're deployed as a single resource. They are a pool of identical VMs that you can use almost always with a load balancer, and you have scaling, manual and auto scaling. For the VMSS, we'll look much more closely at this when we talk about the scalable security designs. So in conclusion, I hope you got some idea of sort of a crash course, enough to maybe get you started to play with the portal, with the Azure CLI, and even start to build some simple templates. And of course, we went through this very, very quickly, but at least you have some idea of how the load balancers and resilience works. Here's some references. These are wonderful tutorials for the ARM, to build your own ARM template. Starts out really easy. Here's one specific to threat defense and one specific to SecureX. And with that, I'd like to conclude my lecture today.